Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today in our panel discussion on financial management. Our goal today is to discuss both operational and strategic aspects of financial management. We'll cover best practices and get into some bigger picture items as well. I'm your moderator. My name is Gautam Chowdhury. I'm a director of product management here at League Apps with a specialization in payments. We have a great panel with you today. Everyone here has an expertise in finance, and I'm really excited for our discussion. I'll let everyone introduce themselves. Can you please tell us a little bit about your personal background and your organization?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. My name is Rodrigo Gomes. I'm from Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and Brazilian too. Yep. So sorry for my accent. I try my best to speak good English. I have been here for 15 years. I play at BYU, Brigham Young University, and I play professional beach volleyball in Brazil. And then I moved here to the U.S. And I have been working at the Northern Virginia Volleyball Association as the CEO for the past 10 years, and has been a great ride, and I have learned a lot from it, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my knowledge with you guys.
Hi, my name is Dottie Talbot, and I'm the Executive Director at Springfield South County Youth Club. And a little bit of background on me: before I became Executive Director there, I had about 30 years of experience in information technology and financial management in the international sector, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector. When I was given the offer to be the Executive Director at SYC, it was obviously a very easy decision for me because I'm also a lifelong fan of soccer. I've played the game, coached at the high school and club level, been a referee, I've been a league administrator. I'm currently a tournament director and the executive director, so it was an easy crossover to get into the club and be on that business side. I currently have my goal right now is just to provide a great experience for the kids, let them learn the game of soccer, and hopefully they'll have some lifelong memories and lasting friendships for the rest of their life.
Great. My name is Tyler Kreitz. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm the founder and CEO of Focus on the Field, and what we do is we are a business process outsourced for youth sports organizations, which essentially means we do the work you don't want to do. And I got into this and started the company kind of by accident. I was a longtime coach. I did not have a career in the youth sports world. I was in biotech and then ed tech and the startup space, and heavily involved in operations, but I always coached, and sports played a huge role in my life growing up. It allowed me to stay focused in school, allowed me to get to a good college. It just was everything for me, and I know what sports can provide. When I started working by chance for the large lacrosse organization out west called Advance, I had this opportunity to help grow this organization to a larger, become a more national entity. And in doing so, I'll get to my point, what I saw was this admin burden and issues that were choking youth sports and causing a lot of headaches and causing what I call the tyranny of the urgent that are essentially affecting organizations across the country. So I said, that's a problem I want to solve. I'm going to go solve it, and a big part of that is creating good financial management practices for the organizations themselves. So.
I'm John Semmel I'm the VP of Business Development for Cooperstown All-Star Village. I'm about 8 months into the role. I was a former minor league baseball player with the Mets, have spent my career in youth sports, worked for Steel Sports for 6 years in a business development role, worked for Lake Point Sports, a large multi-sport facility an hour north of Atlanta, and as I mentioned, about 8 months into this role with Cooperstown All-Star Village. But I acted as essentially a fundless sponsor, sourced the investor for All-Star Village, and then have come on as an operating partner when the deal closed in January.
Awesome, thank you guys. My first question is for you, Rodrigo. Perfect seat. I know you run your organization with a heavy focus on financials. In fact, I think you told me you start every morning by looking at custom reports in Tableau. I'm wondering, why do you start your day this way, and what advice might you have for people who don't?
I think it's a little bit of PTSD, like from when we started. We had a really big debt when I took over NBVA. We were losing a lot of money every year. We were losing about 10%, and I took it over, and then I was looking forward to starting my job, and I realized that there was not even money to pay my salary. So I had to figure out a way to measure everything that we were doing so I could manage. So I need to measure so I can manage. And I learned by going back through our finances that there were some programs that did better for us. I learned that there were some expenses that were not needed and that would help us to get out of that situation. And so what we do nowadays is every day I wake up and I'm able to pull information from our registrations, our income streams from our partners, and then once they get to where they need to go, I have custom rules that put them in different buckets. Each product goes in a different bucket. So products is programs. So then in the morning, I'm able to see on the revenue side how things are going, if I need to change my marketing efforts, if I need to change my coaching hiring process so that I can find more resources, coaches, to be able to grow our programs. And then on the other side, we also run our expenses report, which my team, they report what was spent during the weekend. They add receipts. I don't touch receipts nowadays anymore. I used to touch a lot of receipts and hand sign all of them. They come to assistant as well. I look at them quickly. If they need my attention, there are rules that say this one needs your attention because over a certain amount or certain accounting codes, and then I approve them. And once they go up, both go into Tableau, I'm able to see a full picture of how the revenue is going, how the expenses are going, and then I'm able to make good decisions.
Great. I want to follow up on that, and this question is for everybody. What advice would you have for the audience members who don't necessarily focus operationally on finances? Where could they get started? And we can start down at the other end. Do you want to start, John?
Yeah. So I think, if to me, it's important for finance to communicate with operations and understand, how the programs and things that us operators are serving the customers. And I think without knowing kind of like how your product works and the ins and outs, it becomes much more difficult to administer in a financial position. And, if you do understand the operational side, I think you get a much easier picture and understanding of what's happening.
Anyone else? Tyler?
Yeah, no, I guess it starts from where you are in the life cycle. Like we have an organization like Rodrigo's who's opening up to a custom Tableau dashboard, and then there are organizations that are just trying to figure out if they have more money in their account than they have going out. And wherever you are in the life cycle, I think the most important thing you need to do is to create a process where you can have good data in, good data out. And from the most basic elementary building block, that's identifying where your revenue is coming from, classing it, streaming it. And if you're using something as simple as QuickBooks or you're not yet, make it a priority to find somebody, hire and outsource somebody that can help you classify where your income's coming in and where your income's coming out. Because until you know, you can't make decisions. You can't make an accurate decision. And I know this coming into large organizations that have a lot of revenue coming in, and unfortunately, some of the operators may not feel that this is a necessary priority because they still have more money in their bank account at the beginning than they do at the beginning. So the decision making that they make is based off hunch and anecdote as opposed to real data. And I hate to be so elementary about it, but yeah, just know where it's coming from, know where it's going.
Can I just add to that?
Of course.
I'm like Rodrigo. Every week, I'm looking at our budget reports as they come in, the detailed reports, to see how all of our accounts are tracking. Are we on target? Are we behind? Are we ahead? Do we have to adjust anything? And that lets you have a very healthy look at your budget and what's going to happen with your company, because without the revenue coming in, your company is not going to succeed. So it's very important that you track all of that. And I always tell everybody to hire a very good accountant because they can help you track all of that as well, and have a good team of finance people that are really working with you so that everybody can look on the operations side and with the accounting side. But it is very critical to track all of your accounts to see how you're doing.
Let's dig in there a little bit. Budgeting is so important. So I want to start with you, Tyler, first. You built a whole business on back-end management and administrative support, and you've told me that sometimes the basic building blocks like budgeting is lacking. Why do you think that's the case, and what can we do about that?
I think part of the reason that we've come across, now I can't speak for everybody in this room, but what we've come across is what I call, again, the tyranny of the urgent. When you are a sports operator or a sports organization operator, we're service companies. Our primary revenue is providing great service. So that's where we need to focus our time and attention on. And because of that, and that takes a lot of time, that takes relationships, it takes sometimes literal parent handholding. And in doing so, when you get off the field, you get off the place, you get out of a Zoom call, your things that go, as long as your finances are at least in order, so to speak, or they're positive, you're feeling good about it, it will get pushed down. And so I think there's two things. One is you only have so many hours in the day. Two, the nature of the operator. I haven't met too many sports operators who've come into this with I cannot wait get into youth sports because I love finance. It doesn't really happen like that. It generally, this is a passion play for so many people. I look in it and we feel it. And though this industry is rapidly becoming professionalized, it is becoming professionalized from people who are passionate about it in the first place. And so, the nature of the operator is not one that wants to go dig into spreadsheets. They want to go dig into how can I make a kid better on the field? How can I make a kid better on the court? So you have this two things. You have the tyranny of the urgent, you have the nature of the operator, and I think those two things sort of rub up against each other. And the last thing I'll say is that as we're seeing more and more money coming from glass-walled offices like the ones around us dump into sports, the nature of the operator is going to run into the reality of the acquirer or person who's going to look at you. And if you don't have your data and information set, and you are starting to think, hey, I can make a living out of this. The people who are going to come and talk to you about that are focused on finance and all the data and stuff. So you've got to have your stuff in order. So that's just be a warning to you.
Dottie, you did mention the importance of budgeting and how it's so important to you. I wonder how do you make sure that your staff finds the same value and prioritizes it as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's really important for me. One of the first things we do is document everything. I train staff so that there's two staff that can always do any task. And that way, if somebody's out, somebody leaves our organization, we always have somebody that can fill in. If there's an emergency, everything, if nothing else, is documented, and somebody can follow whatever that process is. I know all the processes at a high level, but I do count on my staff to really be trained in dual processes, and especially in nonprofit organizations, as most of us know. A lot of us do multiple roles just because the financing's not there to have everybody do everything. So documentation's important, and training.
Great, thank you. I wanted to dig in a little bit more about what you said, Tyler, about garbage in, garbage out. Can you tell me a little bit about, I guess for everybody, can you tell us a little bit more about how you deal with data coming in from multiple sources? Is there a single source of truth? And do you have any tips for navigating this both operationally and also big picture wise?
Yes, I do. The one thing that, when you talk about the data in, good data in, you get good data out. It's like if you have everything unclassified, and when I speak of classified, it just really, all these things, it just means making sure you mark, all right, this comes from X, Y, Z, this revenue came from events, this revenue came from a team, yada, yada, yada. And so if you don't have good data coming in that has a stream or some sort of source of truth attached to it, you're not going to be able to know what it means when you're analyzing your profit and loss and analyzing where things are coming from. And so, I'm sorry, I kind of got off track there, but the whole point was, if you don't take the time to set up what those classifications are, you're going to have a hard time understanding what the outcomes are going to be on the other side. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is.
Does anyone else have any advice on how to deal with data, especially financial data coming in from multiple sources? Go ahead, Dottie.
Okay, yeah. So for me, in our youth club, I meet with all of my key people, and we sit down. I mean, we're always sitting down trying to plan whatever's going to be coming, but for budget, with about 6 months out from when our fiscal year starts, I start talking to coaches and my technical director and everybody to see what do they need to get their job done efficiently. And so they kind of give us a wish list, and then we try and figure out where are all of our revenue streams, sponsorship, fundraising, the club fees that come in, donations that come in. You really need to get a handle on all of the revenue coming in, because that's going to dictate what kind of expenses that you can spend going out. So we really spend a lot of time just trying to really understand where all of our revenue is coming from, and that helps us kind of build our budget and stay on track.
Rodrigo.
So we are in a very unique business setup, which is youth sports. There is family accounts, there is different things that we're trying to sell. There's private lessons versus teams versus camps. So it makes it very hard for you to navigate, even your families, to be able to register for one thing, and all of a sudden they need to create another account to register for something else. And unfortunately, like sometimes we need to deal with those situations. But one thing that I learned is if you choose the right gateway behind the scenes to collect your money, now you're able to have one source of truth, because the registrations can be whatever you choose, but if the gateway that's collecting the money has the data or the descriptions that you need, then if you want to get in a little bit higher scenario with using Tableau or something else, then you're able to export that data, and then you're able to see everything in there.
Yeah, one thing I can add there, I just wanted, is that source of truth that you mentioned, and that is key. And if you are taking like revenue from multiple places, like from a league apps, but then you use like Shopify or something, or another sort of platform, you have to bring it into one place. And I think that source of truth, if you don't have it all collecting in one place and you're trying to do it off multiple spreadsheets or multiple different systems, it's not going to work. You got to bring it all into one place, tag it, classify it, and then push it out.
Is there a particular tool that you guys use, like a QuickBooks Online or a NetSuite?
We use QuickBooks Online, and still kind of in the old school of everything ultimately feeds in and pulls in Excel.
Right.
We use Xero, which is analogous to QuickBooks, but it's another online platform, and we have a partner CPA firm that actually uses Xero as well. So, it's great, very analogous to QuickBooks.
Yeah, we also use QuickBooks Online.
QuickBooks with us, and I would suggest you write down this software that I really like. It's called Zapier, Zapier. That's going to allow you to pull data from a lot of different places that if you need. And then always pay attention if companies that you work with have a connection with Zapier. Is going to help you a lot through the process. Has helped us a lot.
That's really good to hear. I think this would be a good opportunity for me to plug that League Apps has both an integration with Zapier and QuickBooks Online. Those are two products that I worked on, so I'd be happy to talk to anyone about them if they have any questions about that.
I can say anecdotally, we are connected with League Apps and Zapier with Constant Contact, HubSpot, and we're working on the QuickBooks Online integration right now. It should be live soon.
Yeah, I mean it's a relatively new feature. I think it's just coming out of beta, but we're really excited about it. It's something that we've been hearing about for years, and it just took a while to get it right. With dollars and cents, you can't be 98% accurate. You have to be 101% accurate.
Can I ask something of the? How many of you guys are already classifying all your expenses and revenue streams? Okay, and how many of you are not? Anyone? No, you don't. You can tell us in private if you want.
That's good. That's good. My next question is for John. I have a question about like a bigger picture financial decision, like mergers and acquisitions. And I know this might not be in the cards for everyone, but I think it would be interesting to hear a little bit about your story and how you evaluate these opportunities when they arise.
Yeah, definitely. So I can talk to All-Star Village, but taking a step back, I think anytime you get into an M&A or an investment conversation, every single business owner or ownership group has a different objective or what they want to get out of the transaction, whether that might be a liquidity event or they're really poised for growth because the model is, it's now time. But with All-Star Village, at least, it was a mom and pop business, single owner operator. The owner was 73 years old, looking for retirement, had done it for 18 years, very successful, and he wanted a steward for the business. And so, you know, I had an independent relationship with him, and over 8 years, really, he was looking at different investors, and then ultimately Bolt and Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment. We were able to connect both the old owner, Marty, and Josh Harris and David Blitzer to Marty, and it was a fit. And it was a fit for a couple of reasons. I think from a growth perspective, our investor group is well capitalized. We own, you know, other professional sports teams. And I think, you know, as we're talking about here, you know, more professional investors are wanting to get into the space, and they're sort of leading the charge and taking some of the operational expertise they have at the professional sports level and applying it to, you know, the youth level. And I think that's a trend that's happening now, and we'll continue to see that accelerate. But I think just from like a macro level, you know, you shouldn't be, if you are approached by an investor, in my opinion, they shouldn't just be money. There should be some other strategic alignment, whether that's financial, sales and marketing, you know, there's an alignment on product or alignment on vision. I think the worst thing that, you know, an acquiree can do is just take the money for the money's sake. I think that it needs to be really thought out and planned on, you know, what are the strategic advantages of taking this money, and where does that lead at the business in the next 3 to 5 years?
Great, thank you. I want to make sure that we have time to open it up to the audience members to ask questions. So I'll ask you guys one last question, and then we'll take questions from the audience. It's really important that you guys ask questions, not me. So if you could share one piece of advice with the audience, something that you wish you would have known, you know, from the start, what would it be? You know, kick us off, Rodrigo?
Yeah. For me, like I said at the beginning, I didn't know how we were losing so much money. My organization was already really big, and there was 3,000 kids going through it, and we were still losing money. So I was like, what do I do? But luckily, we had some data that was able to look back and then filter through that and make better decisions. So I would strongly recommend that you do that. And then as you do that, you understand how to filter and make things very small. That's one thing that I wish I had in the past. Smaller categories when you bookkeeping, just making sure things are very nice and sweet. Member fees is just member fees, and not having a million codes and different ways to look at the same thing.
For me, I would say never be afraid to change. I always have a motto that those who don't evolve become extinct. So always look for ways to evolve, make your process better, whether it's through technology or process improvements of doing things smarter, not harder, and that will help your organization thrive.
I would say, like, especially from the outset, as you're getting started, is operate off the KISS principle of keep it simple, stupid. And because as you go on and take on larger projects and some things that may seem daunting, like getting control of your finances or understanding how you're going to make a model of where you're going to be going, start with the foundational pieces and build from there, and think of it as, like, to use another sports analogy, it's 1 yard at a time, just moving down the field. If you can get ahead one piece at a time every single day, by the, you know, that's like, those efforts are going to compound upon themselves, and after the end of a month, end of 2 months, 3 months, you're going to look back and see, wow, look how much more information we have and look what better story we have from the data that we're collecting. So keep it simple and just start with the basics.
For me, it would be proper planning prevents poor performance. I think, especially as operators, a lot of times we're playing defense. Things move really quick during our seasons. But, you know, to the extent that you can get out ahead and really understand what's coming down, you know, the pipe in 3, 6, 9, 12 months. So we're not playing defense, you know, and we're less reactionary and more anticipatory, and we can plan for things and get out ahead of things instead of being, you know, reactionary. And it's something that, you know, we work on, and as an organization, it's a constant challenge and battle.
Great, thank you. Would love to take a bunch of questions from the audience. Yeah, you can start.
May I ask what's your payment gateway? Stripe, yeah. So there's a new connection that League Apps is building, but if you just doing Stripe right now, I actually use something called Pay Tracker. It's only $30 a month, and that you only pay $30 a month and you get 1,000 credits. And what it does, and I don't want to talk about the software because the software is a little complex, but the main thing is that you can create rules. It takes time for you to create all the rules, but then you just run the transaction download from Stripe, and once it gets there, it's already all categorized, and you send it over. It's a lot cheaper than Zapier to do that with QuickBooks. And if you look at the QuickBooks marketplace, it's going to have the connection in there. It's safe, it's secure, because it's there. It's approved by them.
I want to touch a little bit on our native integration with QuickBooks Online. We built in some functionality within League Apps so you can tag each program with a specific income account and/or class. So when you have multiple transactions that hit that day, the journal entries will have those classes and income accounts associated with it. And then at the end of the day, there'll be a batch for the entire amount. So we understand that you will have multiple like we want you to, and we know you'll have multiple registrations a day for varying programs, whether they're boys and girls or camps and tournaments or leagues and clubs. So the key, I think Tyler mentioned this earlier, is tagging those programs accordingly, so the corresponding payments have the right attributes for you in QuickBooks or whatever other software solution you're using.
So what I have actually gotten better in the last couple of years is by differentiating accounting codes versus products. On QuickBooks, it is a feature. You can create products, and then my products are my programs, and my programs are the main thing, and I have sub-programs, but at the end of the day, I'm just looking at the main program as my revenue. And then when it comes to the accounting code, then I just look at member fees versus tournament registration. So I just finished my fiscal year last week, so I had a board meeting yesterday, so I'm a little tired today because it was a long meeting. It was not a long meeting, it was just late. And that's what we're looking at. The revenue is really easy because I'm looking pretty much at 5 lines when it comes to the accounting code. But then products, it's a lot of products, It makes life a lot easier when you look at that way than trying to use your accounting codes to make decisions, in my opinion.
I would also, if you look at the services you're providing, the way we work with and we recommend and work with our clients is that you want to separate them into different lanes depending on what those services are. If you do events should be kept away from teams, should be kept away from camps and clinics. And if you have if camps and clinics are a key part of your business, break it down even smaller. But depending on the size of the revenue is where you need to break it down. Because if you have teams and your teams span from travel teams to rec teams, well, break it down into keep breaking it down as you see fit. If your events are really just 2 or 3 events, and there's not a lot of them, then maybe keep that stream as it is. But in those, if they fit together in that regard, keep those streams together, and as they grow, start separating them out.
Yeah, I will say in our youth club, we have 15 different sports. So we have a lot of codes, and every sport is kept completely separate on their revenue and their expenses so that when we go to our board, they can see everything that each sport does.
I have a quick follow-up. How do you decide when to increase the breadth of your programming, whether that's another sport or another line of business like camps and clinics in addition to your clubs? Is there any advice that you'd have for the group?
Gosh, I mean, it can kind of go two ways. One, is there a need? A lot of times your community will tell you, hey, we want to have camps and clinics, or we want to do an event or something. So a lot of it will be driven from your community. The other thing is for your staff, your coaches, and the technical staff to say, hey, we want to create this. I think there's a market for it. And let's do a pilot and try it, test it out, do a 4-week clinic, see what type of, what kind of people you get coming out, and see what those numbers look like.
Tyler, Rodrigo, John.
At NVVA, we use a tagging system, so which means that if we, for instance, we use a software, Team Genius, to do our assessments, and then when we see that a lot of kids are getting low scores on passing, we understand that there's a need for more marketing for passing classes. So we try to look at data as a main source of understanding what the customer experience needs to be, and that's how we kind of create products, new products, if we will. We try not to create a lot of new products, though, because try to be good at what we do as much as we can, and 15 different sports I can't even imagine. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I think
One thing I would add on that is that after identifying pain and need, okay, it's there. One thing that we've seen for the groups we work with is they sometimes let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so we really advocate them to create their MVP, their minimum viable product, whatever that is. If you're creating a new tournament, run it create the budget, and make sure and plan for something that's going to break even the first year. It's a planning year. It's something to just get it going, get it started, get the process started. Because the second time you do it, you're going to be more efficient when you do it. If it's a team, same thing. Just get the minimal viable product out there, provide a wonderful experience for your people, your customers, your clients, and then know that next time you do it, you're going to be more efficient because you're not going to have to reinvent the wheel. You know what's going, you know what's happening. You can plan for it. You can find those efficiencies there. So find the pain, find the need, get the MVP out there, and then iterate off of it.
I will say one thing. In addition to being the executive director, I'm also the tournament director for a big soccer tournament that the club puts on. It's been going on since 1974. We get over 500 teams every Memorial Day weekend. And every year, I've been doing that job for 10 years, and every year I learn something, make something more efficient. It's a better experience for the teams. So every year you'll get better at whatever you're doing. You just have to be open to be able to learn that.
That's great. That's the same philosophy we use when building product here at League Apps. Is let's start small, iterate, and continue to solve problems and drive value. Any more questions from the audience?
For people that are coming into this more as a passion play, they don't have the financial background, they're not MBAs or anything like that. Do you have any recommendations for just minimal educational resources so that they can learn the importance of those things and then how to do it?
I'm trying to think, like, when you say educational, I want to make sure I understand what you're asking in terms. To give an idea.
They better understands, what a P&L statement looks like. How do you use that? Just because people coming in as soccer coaches may not understand what the basics are.
Yeah, most. Unfortunately, I don't have a smart answer to be like, oh yes, X, Y, and Z. No, I don't. I don't offhand. It says, oh, here's the educational resources of how to, other than YouTube, how to run a P&L. But
Hire Tyler.
they hired us.
We
and
did
it's going
that.
well. No, but really, again, my only bit of advice is start with the basics. It seems like it's, oh my gosh, this huge project. We'll start with the basics. Literally typing in what is a P&L, and start from there. And start by really simple exploring. I don't have one. Does anybody have any, by the way?
I can add to that, but to connect to what you're saying. Like the way I learned, it was by learning how to read the P&L, because I didn't know that when I started. So that was great education for me, because I had to understand what the codes meant. I had to understand how it worked. I had no idea. And then from there, things just became natural. I had to learn how to use spreadsheets really well, because it took forever to go through 5,000, 10,000 rows of data. So I'm like, okay, there got to be a better way. And then I kind of, one thing just led to another, you know. So reading the P&L, understanding how to read a P&L is a great way to start.
On that, one thing I would recommend, not learning how to run a P&L, take a basic Excel class or Google Sheets class. Like, take a basic class, get comfortable with it. If you are intimidated by the software system, you are not going to be able to use it. And if you have to at least get comfortable with it before you can get anything out of it.
I was going to say something similar. It's like you don't necessarily need to jump into like a QuickBooks Online. Like that is a really powerful software. We love it, but like Excel is also very powerful, and you can just build a basic budget in Excel, do a couple simple formulas like sums that just help give you like a little bit of a bigger picture of what's going on. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I think it's your relationship with your customers is everything. And the experience that you're providing is like first and foremost. It doesn't matter, what sort of money is rolling in with all the, fancy bells and whistles. If you have the relationships with, your parents, your coaches, your staff members, and you're fostering those, and, to me, I think that's first and foremost. As far as competing with the bigger players and how do you keep up, I think understanding what their tool set is, their toolbox is as far as technology, whether that's live streaming or coaching applications or team communication, and trying to also have those tools in your toolbox. And to the extent that you can give your employees training and dedicated time to be able to understand what those tool sets are, you can still compete. I think really the biggest thing in our space is the customer experience and, the communication with your parents who are ultimately making purchasing decisions. And as long as those relationships are fostered, and I think you can still compete even as a small business with the bigger players, because a lot of the bigger players don't know the market dynamics that and the history that you have with your certain region and the area that you focus on.
ask you something? What are the things that are causing you the most pain that you can literally take off your plate? And I would say this, you don't have to answer this, but what are the things that are taking the most time? Where can that time be spent elsewhere? And
Basically, a lot of it comes down to marketing, which I hadn't done. I probably started. I get somebody in the Midwest that does a lot of my stuff that way. Just my regular marketing stuff. We just lost a lot of people to COVID. COVID was just like getting people to come in the door, and then you go through the whole thing of training them, and they leave 6 months later, or whatever the case is that way. So you finally get comfortable kind of doing it, and then all of a sudden, not having to do it. Because I mean, honestly, as a club owner, my real passion is the coaching. It's what I love to do. And now I'm at a point now where I'm getting old enough that I can kind of like mentor coaches. That's kind of that next step for me. In the business side, I mean, we're doing all right. We're okay. It's just we just see all that kind of stuff. It's the administrative stuff that's kind of killing me as far as it goes. And I know that's part of it, but I mean, we're falling 16, 18 hours a day. It's just kind of, the spreadsheets, all the stuff we're talking about. Just either I'm not a quick study or I'm not sure if it's what it is.
No, I mean, we have been in your chair for sure, and it's honest, not a sales pitch for Tyler, but that's part of the reason why we hired Focus on the Field. We operate 14 tournaments in 12 weeks. We run, 98 days straight. We'll see 10,000 kids over the course of the summer, and it's hard when the train is moving at full speed to then also focus on the administrative side, the financial planning, all that stuff that's important during the middle of your season. And again, not a sales pitch for Tyler, but they Focus on the Field came in and really were that like back office support that took 4 or 5 hours out of our operational day and allocated back to marketing was the first thing, sales, reaching back out to customers, going into areas that we don't currently market to. He is.
the guy you want to talk to, if you turn around, you can wave at Corey Harris, who's our, and Drew Sanders, he's our CEO. But honestly, I started what I did because of this. My parents were teachers. I love sports. The environment that kids are growing up in now with the price points, my parents couldn't afford. And I want to, we want to do the work so you folks like yourself can keep doing it. And so, anyways, we'll talk to you after this.
I'm gonna add. Can I add a last thing here?
Of course.
So I'm gonna say a dirty word in the youth sports word. It's like profit margin. We are a nonprofit, but we need to know how much money each program is making for us. That make it easy for me to eliminate some things that we're creating a lot of work for my team, for myself at the beginning, and then focusing on the things that are like bringing enough money so that we could reinvest into the programs. We give $100,000 a year in scholarships. Whoever pretty much asks for a scholarship in our program, we give it to them. And at the beginning, when I took over the program, we had about 100 travel teams. And I cut it down to 12. And you are gonna ask like, okay, what you doing here? You have 12 teams, but I went up to 3,000 registrations doing the little youth leagues. And I'm actually providing an experience and a product that my demographic, Loudoun County, wants. They want the $300 a month program versus the $10,000, So maybe if you truly understand your margins, since we talk about financial management here, makes it easier for you to make decisions to eliminate things that maybe is creating a lot of work for you, and then you can give back by, make some money for yourself and then provide some scholarships. There was a question about scholarship. I don't know if you wanted me to answer that.
Great, thank you. We have time for a few more questions if there are any.
Just to kind of follow up on what you were saying about scholarships, I guess like what's your recommendation of finding the balance of, right? There's like always people in need, always people that can use it, but not overextending that where it is cutting to
Great question. It goes all back to financial management. The way we do it, I know exactly how much money I'm paying other people or how much money I'm paying my organization. I'm paying my organization money sometimes for rent because we have our own facility, overhead. So all those things I'm willing to give up. So that's the starting point. I know I'm willing to give this much in scholarship. So if the fees $100, and then I'm giving away to vendors 20, and I'm keeping 30, I'm willing to give $30 in scholarship because it's not money I'm giving away. Second step, I put a percentage on everybody's fees that is towards that gap that I have, so I can give more. And then third, then I do the fundraising donations. So if I get more money through donations, then I get even closer to the amount of money that I know I can afford to give in scholarships. What you don't want to do, unless you have the donations, is to start giving money that you would be giving to other vendors. So if a kid is going to 3 tournaments in Orlando, in New York, and you're paying hotels and all those things, and you're giving scholarships to that kid, you're paying that cost, but if you're just giving scholarship with the cost that you would be taking the money home yourself, then it's a good start, Then if you got donations, then there you go, you can pay for a kid to go for a trip, but you can just take that out of your pocket. I would suggest you don't do that unless, have a big sponsor behind you, so you can run your business.
Yeah, I think that's key, is to getting donations and sponsorships for financial aid. We actually, in our registration system, even have a field so that parents can donate to financial aid for our club. And every little $5, $10, $25, we have 10,000 registrations a year. That adds up to a lot of money. And, it's a little bit from every person, and it goes a long way.
You actually answered the question before I could ask it, but I was going to ask the rest of the panel if they had any tips and tricks on fundraising and collecting donations.
Yeah, I think events, too, is a huge thing. We do a golf tournament. We have little things for the kids. We just did a kickoff celebration, and we sell merchandise there. We sell food. So all those little things are always making money for us. So just any little event that you can create. We do camps and clinics. We do a big tournament for the soccer program. So we're always looking for ways that we can, a little bit of money here. It all adds up at the end of the day, so.
I was going to say, just make it as easy as possible. A button on your registration says, do you want to donate? We'll get you. That is the most simple and effective solution to raise money, because they're in the buying mood. They're stoked. All right, I'm going to go join your team. I'm going to go join your event. $25, sure. And I get to feel good about myself. So put it on there. If you haven't done it, just do it. Put a button for donations in your registration process, wherever it is.
Do you use the League Apps feature for that? We have an upsell feature in the registration flow. We have a lot of partners that use that for donations.
Yeah, we've used, short answer, yes. In whichever platform, put the button on there.
All right. We definitely have time for a couple more questions, so please don't be shy.
So that's what I do. So when we did the golf event, all the businesses that sponsored the event, I gave them all a tax donation letter. You just have to be very specific with your wording that they did not get anything in return for the donation that they gave to you.
Just to piggyback off the donation plan thing, is that user accessible, or do I have to contact someone from League to get that set up in the registration process?
So it's user accessible. It's not specifically just for donations, but we find that's the most popular use case. There's a step after you fill out your registration form where you can upsell a variety of things, and one of the things that we find common is a donation, because then you don't have to like source it. You're just adding to the invoice.
Is it possible, because we have it on our website, can you link that into the registration, thank you for registering, and if you want to donate, this website, can you do that as well, or?
You could do that in a few different ways. I'm thinking the most effective way might be putting that into the confirmation email. So it actually shows up on the screen and is also sent via email as well.
Would that require the person having input part of the information
if you're sending them to a different site, that is correct. That's why a lot of people use what we call the e-commerce feature for donations. It's just a simple add-on. All right, thank you.
Have you all done anything in your roles to excite predominantly athletic people, sports people, about financials, to get them really interested in it, to help them understand it? Any specific things that you've done that's really worked well for you? Because I know that in my organization, that's a challenge we face. They're very good at mentoring athletes. They love it. It's their passion. We got to get them to see the financial picture too. Any great ideas we can steal?
I'll tell you, when I started running Advance, one of the first things I did was we brought the operators in and I painted a very clear picture of it's like you make it a performance game. Here's who's performing, here's who's not. And it's not, you don't make it a sales boiler room, but rather like, here's the reality. Here's the fiscal reality, and it's wonderful, but hey guys, here's the game we have to play. Take the financial picture and put it back on terms that people are comfortable with. And right now it's a game we're playing. We have to be profitable, so let's figure out how we can do it, and let's do it together as a team. And when you make that presentation, be very presented as if you're presenting a team plan about how you're going to win the game.
Yeah, and I would also say get them involved in the planning process. I do that with all of my directors on the soccer program. And we have some very robust discussions, and they care because they're like, okay, well, this is how much all these things cost. This is what we need to do to get what you need. So then they're more willing to participate if you involve them.
And for me, it's hard to even think about that question because I do everything by the data, but that's what I had to think of a little bit. But putting things like black and white, that's why I use Tableau. There's another tool that I use called the Airtable that is literally like give me colors. And for me in the morning, that's what I like to see. Black, white, red, green, and sometimes people don't want to dive into P&Ls and spreadsheets and things like that. So it's gonna maybe take a little bit of work on whoever's doing that part. But if you can paint a picture and present a picture, it's better than words sometimes, especially the world we live in today. People, that's why Instagram is investing a lot in video and Facebook, right? That's what we do. Yeah, TikTok.
All right, I think we have time for one final question. Is there anyone interested in asking one question, or should I take it? All right, so last question for the group. What are you most excited about in your 2023 financial plans?
Financial plans?
Nothing gets us excited like spreadsheets.
So I finished my fiscal year last week because we run September to October. So I'm excited that we did great last season and even after the pandemic. And I'm excited to keep investing into the right things. So that's a great thing. Like when you have that resource to invest a little bit, I have some consultants I'm working with now, especially HR, because it's one of the hardest things nowadays to find coaches, find staff members, and keeping them around. So I'm excited to putting that into my plans, into my financial plans, so that we can continue making those investments.
I think for me, we had a very good year last year. Our soccer program was $200,000 in the black, so they did a really good job. A lot of our sports are usually break even. Soccer is a huge business, as I'm sure we all know, in travel soccer, so that's a more robust budget. And so we put that money into a capital improvements account so that we can put money aside to put in another turf field. So we're excited about continuing to generate money so we can do that for the kids.
I would say I'm just excited about working with operators who are intimidated by this or who need help with this so that they can put their time and energy where it matters most. And I'd want to save sports through spreadsheets. So it's like, this is what we do. This is what we get excited about.
For us, we've been heavily marketing and testing a few different marketing strategies, and we are getting closer to understanding what a cost per lead and cost per customer acquisition is through Facebook ads and Google and SEO. So to me, by the end of hopefully 2023, we have, what that cost is per lead and ultimately per team sale acquisition.
Great, thank you. On behalf of League Apps and the audience members, I want to thank you all for your time and your advice.